Are you ready to get the hydrofacial glow? Loved in 87 countries across the world. It's not a facial, it's a hydrofacial. Now available across the UK. Visit hydrofacial.co.uk to find your nearest location.
One of the joys was the fact that it didn't matter what you looked like. You could play anything. And unfortunately, because I played Billy, who's 16, I got to play a lot of young, angst-ridden teenagers, which was great. Which was great when they cast Romeo and Juliet, because I was Romeo. So.
Happy Friday!
Happy Friday!
Darlings, I don't know if you've noticed, but Debbie's still not here.
I know, there's still an empty box. I don't get it. I've not heard a word.
I didn't do anything to get rid of her, honestly.
No. Are you sure? Are you sure? It wasn't the swan or anything? Swanning about? No?
No, it's nothing to do with me.
No.
I didn't suggest anybody take her away or anything.
No.
The fact you said take her away is indicative, perhaps, of some plotting that you might have done, darling.
Yes.
Me? No, not moi.
Oh, no.
Not
Of
that
course.
person.
She seems to have sailed off into the sunset.
Yes, apparently.
Well, I can't tell you. I can't tell you. I do know some secrets.
Well, absolutely. You have something on all of us, of course. But
I know.
anyway. I want to bring in our guest today, which is the extraordinary Gordon Griffin, who has done almost 1,000 audiobooks.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Hi!
Hiya. Hello.
Welcome, darling. I've said that you've done almost 1,000 audiobooks, so no one in the country has probably escaped listening to you at some point. Obviously, you're an actor. You've done loads of different things. But how on earth did you get started? Because you're not from London, are you, darling?
No, it's an interesting, I'm from Newcastle, and when I was growing up in the 1950s with a Geordie accent, my dad was a fishmonger from Byker, which is quite a rough area in Newcastle. And I would tell anybody who listened, I wanted to be an actor, because the moment I went into the theatre when I was about 4 to a pantomime, I just knew that I wanted to be on the stage, even before I knew what being an actor was. And so I just was absolutely determined that I would be an actor. And how I got into audiobooks was just doing a lot of radio. I got my first radio job in 1969, where I played Billy in The Dales, Mrs. Dale's Diary as well. And Billy was a 16-year-old grandson of Mrs. Dale. I was 24. And that was the wonderful thing about radio. I was 24 and I was playing convincingly, I think, a 16-year-old. But the great thing was my grandmother was Jessie Matthews. Can you imagine? The great Matthews was Mrs. Dale. And I remember the producer said to me when I first joined the cast, she said, I have to warn you about Jessie. She does talk a lot. Perhaps you may want to avoid her. I thought, what, are you kidding? Avoid talking to Jessie Matthews?
Yes.
Incredible. I adore Jessie Matthews. It was fabulous. But I did a lot of radio. I worked on the BBC Rep. And as I say, one of the joys was the fact that it didn't matter what you looked like. You could play anything. And unfortunately, because I played Billy, who's 16, I got to play a lot of young, angst-ridden teenagers, which was great. Which was great when they cast Romeo and Juliet, because I was Romeo. So, but when audiobooks came along, I thought, well, this is something I can do, because when you're on the BBC Rep, you're not just in plays. You do narration, you do presenting programs, and tell stories. And also, I hadn't realized this till afterwards, even my acting career, when I was doing a lot of television and theatre, on television, I presented Play School, and I also did stories on Rainbow. So I should have got a clue that my career was pushing me towards recording books. So
Can
when
I just say something to you? I'm big on talking pictures, old black and white movies.
Oh yeah.
And there was always a thing, and I met one of them because I used to do a lot of radio, and I met a lady who always played babies and toddlers.
Yeah.
And it always used to be then, if you watch them now, if you watch little boys or little girls on those black and white films, they are grown-up adults playing those voices, dubbed on later.
Yeah.
That always used to be, didn't it?
Yes, absolutely. And of course, as I say, it doesn't matter what you look like. For a long, long time, very early on in her career, Miriam Margolyes used to play very, very sexy, with this kind of voice. But, she'd be the first to admit she doesn't look like Marilyn Monroe. But she made a lot of money playing those kind of roles. And that was wonderful.
Is there anything with all your books, do you have to immerse yourself? And I know you said to me when you were in lockdown, you suddenly, it was so hard because you weren't in the studio, you were doing it, but you were also doing all the technical stuff as well, which is when you're...
I absolutely hated that. Yes, I kind of resisted working from home, although a lot of my colleagues do and do it very, very successfully. I resisted it, but because I'm not brilliantly technical, as you know, but I realized that I had to do it, and I set up a studio with the help of a friend, and I recorded quite a lot of books. But one of the joys of working in a studio is it's you concentrating completely on the story, and somebody else is listening to whether you make a mistake or not. I found it really very, very difficult to listen to myself while I'm telling the story. So yes. I had to monitor myself, which was really, really hard and something I'd never done before. But I had to do it. But once lockdown finished and I was back in the studio, I announced to all the studios, okay, that's it. I'm not doing any more at home. If I can possibly help.
Are there any books that you wouldn't take on, like 50 Shades of Grey, or
no,
wouldn't that be ridiculous?
No, I honestly, the thing about recording audiobooks, as you may know, that you're booked to do a book, and it sometimes can be weeks before you actually get the copy of the script. So you don't know what you're recording. You've got a title, but you don't know what the subject of the book is. So I don't mind. No, I've just done about everything. The one kind of area that I'm a bit wary of is self-help books, and I've recorded, for some reason my voice is the right kind of voice for saying, now you should do this, now you should do that. And sometimes I was actually saying things that I didn't believe myself. And it was my voice saying, I think you should do this, and I think you should motivate yourself by doing this. And I thought, I'm not sure that I agree with this.
Yeah.
I said to the producer, the guy who ran the studio, that they're the kind of books I prefer not to do.
Yeah.
But they said, but they like you. Yours is the perfect voice. I said, I'd rather not. And
what about doing it in your pet voice?
What?
Your Geordie voice.
Well, you see, I love, every now and again, I'm completely bilingual. When I was growing up, as I say, in Newcastle, I had a Geordie accent. Even when I was very, very young, this is the 50s, I recognized that if I was going to have a career at all in those days, I had to not get rid of my Geordie accent, but I had to learn how to speak the other way.
Yes.
And so I went to elocution lessons when I was about 13 and went in for competitions. And so I could speak like this. Of course, I couldn't speak like this in school. I'd be lynched. It was a terrible school. But but I became completely bilingual. So I could just slip into Geordie or not. And I didn't have to put on the voice. So
do your Geordie voice, darling.
Oh man, you can't. No, that's a really cruel thing to ask.
No, because
cruel.
She's very cruel.
Yeah, well, get over it. Just do your voice, darling. Give us a couple of lines. Because you said you worked on
Biker Grove.
You worked on Biker Grove. Let's have a look at that.
Here, the question: who spoke the very first lines of the very first episode of the very first series of Biker Grove? Someone.
You did.
I did. You're very good. It's a bit cruel to ask me to do Geordie like that. Well, Geordie is like this. And if I was doing this interview with Geordie, I'd be speaking like this to you. That's how I'd talk. And we could do the interview in Geordie if you want to. And this is the way I used to speak when I was younger, but a bit higher. The register was higher, but this is a Geordie accent I used to have.
Fabulous.
It's so wonderful. And with all the different characters in the books, they all have different sounds and voices, and I just think it's so magical. Do you love creating them?
I absolutely do. But this is a very important point, and this is, I mean, actors in the main are obviously better at doing audiobooks because you've got to have a good ear. This one's good. You have to have a good ear. You have to be able to do all sorts of accents.
Yes.
I used to go around doing talks, and people used to libraries and things. People used to always come up afterwards and say, "Oh, I'd like to do what you do." People have told me I've got a very nice voice, and I would say, "Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Can you do accents? Have you got a good ear?" And they, "Oh no, I can't do accents. It's going to be a problem." You have to have a good ear. It's crucial. But the thing about why some actors can't do audiobooks is they want to perform, to act, to do all kinds of, to be clever, do clever voices. If somebody is listening to one of my audiobooks and they say, "Oh, I love the way he does that voice," then in some ways I've failed, because they're listening to how I'm telling the story.
Yes, so they're listening to you.
Both.
Yeah.
Actors have a tendency to perform, to show off.
I don't know what you mean, dear.
No, what you have to do is say it's the complete opposite of this. It's this. Come here, listen.
Yes.
Incredible story to tell you. Listen to this, and you bring them in. It's a subtle skill.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, Gordon, I was impressed because you do so many other things as well. How do you fit it all in? You've done voice coaching and casting. Goodness me. And we're all sitting here.
I was the casting director for a long time with the English Theatre of Hamburg, and that I was able to fit it into with all the other work, because the voiceover work took over from my television and theatre work, and eventually took over completely, so I was doing nothing else. So every now and again I could fit in. The coaching came later because I was asked to do workshops with people who wanted to do audiobooks, and I never had the time, but now I've fitted that in a bit more. And I don't know how I found the time. I just somehow manipulated it, because when you're recording audiobooks, it became such that I looked at my diary. I thought, how on earth can I record all those books? I'd say a couple of months non-stop recording, but you somehow do, don't you? You just
get on with it.
Always ask a busy
Talking
person.
about theatre, you did the first tour of Godspell, which is very much my heart, because I remember seeing I thought the first performance with David Essex at the Roundhouse, but I don't know if it was the first. It was about 1970, 71.
That was the first performance in the UK, yes.
Right.
The Roundhouse, then it came to the Wyndhams, and because of the success of that, they decided to take out a tour, and I auditioned for that and got it. So I was in the first national tour while it was still playing in London. And it was interesting because there were we were all very, very young, and two people had just come fresh from drama school, and they joined the cast, Leslie Joseph and Susie Blake.
Amazing.
I never knew they did that. Oh, wow.
I know. And
what a great show. Wasn't that a great show, though? I just loved it.
Do you know what? I was talking to somebody who was in the London cast, and I've talked to many people who've done it over the years, and we all said the same thing. That year that I did in Godspell was probably the happiest of all the jobs I ever did. An uplifting show. I wonder, though, what do you think? Do you think it doesn't work now? Do you think it was so innocent? No.
Yes.
I saw it at the Palladium, and I think every generation, they don't have anything to judge it by, so they're moved by it and taken up by the story and the imagery. So I think it does work. It may, when we have something to compare things to, we may feel differently, but as my experience of it was adored and is coming back again. And
really? Yeah. Okay.
I think so. I think the answer is yes, because it's a new generation with a new idea of it. And I think
we could all be in the older version of it, couldn't we?
Yes, dear, we could.
Good.
Of course.
Yeah. Geriatric.
Well, we could the geriatric version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, definitely.
It was just that sometimes, I saw a revival of Hair, and they were sending it up. But when we all saw hair, it was so exciting and
Oh
fantastic.
my God, I've
And
never
they
forgotten that.
weren't sending it up.
No, I remember
Yeah.
going to see it with my parents. We were living in LA at the time, and we were walking down Sunset Boulevard. And it was flower power, hippies, hair. It was the most amazing, you know, sort of
Yeah.
groundbreaking show.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or would we actually want to do a version of it now at our age?
Nobody would pay us to do that, dear.
No,
We couldn't do a
exactly.
They pay
geriatric
us not to be in
Pay
it.
to do it.
Thank you. Maybe we could threaten them with that, and we could make a lot of money.
We could.
We will do a geriatric version of hair,
Yeah.
and they'll
Yeah,
say no.
Yeah, you're making me feel quite ill.
I'd be absolutely up for it.
Well, I'm sure you would.
Absolutely. The 4 Wonderbirds.
yeah, why not? I mean,
Now,
absolutely.
what about your book? Have you got your book there so we can see it?
By chance.
you mean the book I wrote? The book
Yes, the book, what you wrote, love.
Yeah, well, I was approached by a publisher a few years ago to talk about how this is the story I'm telling you about, a boy from Newcastle who recorded more books than anybody else and ends up getting an MBE. How did that happen? And it's a good story, isn't it? So
Yes.
why don't you write the book? And I found actually the writing quite easy. It was finding the time to write it that was difficult.
Right.
And I,
There, darling, can we see it? There we go.
Speaking Volumes, good title, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a very good title.
But you've only
And,
got the one volume so far.
What? What was
You've
that
only got the
Another
one
one.
volume so far, darling. You've got 2 other volumes to come, obviously.
Oh well, I don't know about that. Funnily enough, when I was writing it, I didn't have a very good ending. Well, I think at that point I'd recorded about 800 books, and it's all right. And I was in the studio on my 800, and the producer came in with a huge bottle of champagne, and all the secretaries and the producers and the engineers all came, and we celebrated. I thought, well, okay, that's the ending of the book. It's not great. And then, of course, I got the letter saying, would you be minded to accept an MBE? I thought, that's the ending. That's the ending.
Oh.
Me and Her Majesty.
Oh.
There's a photograph in the book of me with, am I allowed to show this? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get this.
Oh, wow. Let me put my
Oh.
glasses on. Wait.
Hang on, hold it there.
Oh,
that's
wow.
amazing.
Oh my god! Oh, the Queen. Oh,
Was that a wonderful day?
Do you know what was interesting? I've got a very good friend who works at Buckingham Palace and worked one-to-one with the Queen. And I had dinner with him and his wife, and when I heard that I was going to get the award, and he said, it won't be the Queen. He said, I've just got to warn you, it won't be the Queen. She's not going to do it anymore. It's standing on her feet all that time, and it's challenging. So I thought, okay, it'll be. The one thing about the Queen is you have this, as you know, there's a huge protocol, and you've got to say Your Majesty the first time, then ma'am, and it says on the instructions to rhyme with jam, not ma'am. And you walk backward. You don't say this, and you don't do this. And I thought, well, at least if it's as it's not the Queen, I don't have to worry about all that. So when we got on there on the day, it was the same day that Julie Walters got her damehood, and lovely Helen McCrory got her OBE. It was that day. Anyway, we're all there in this wonderful gallery, drinking delicious water, royal water. And I said to this guy who had lots of medals and things, I said, this is on the day, I didn't know. I said, can you tell me who's officiating? And he said, it's the Queen. And I almost said, no, it's not. I've got it on very good authority. It's not the Queen. But of course, it was the Queen. I got the Queen.
So did you curtsy, darling? Did you curtsy?
Well, I went to pieces. I tend not to get nervous about things, but I actually thought, oh my God, what have I got to say to Your Majesty? And I just went all the way down to the window. And of course, one thing you haven't got to do is turn your back on the Queen. And I was so nervous. We chatted, and she was lovely. I mean, she was absolutely smashing, and she looks you in the eye, and she looks as though she's really interested, though she had absolutely no idea what an audiobook was. She was very sweet, but when she shook my hand, and I thought, oh, I haven't said Your Majesty, I haven't said ma'am. So I said, thank you, ma'am, remember that. And my friends and my partner in the audience saw me slightly turn to walk down the steps, and just in time I remember, no, you can't do that. So it was terrifying, but she was so sweet, and yeah, that was an incredibly memorable day. I was so nervous, and I didn't remember anything about what I'd said until the website. I didn't know Buckingham Palace had a website, but they've got one. And on that very day, there were photographs of Julie Walters and me, and there were 3 photographs of me with the Queen. And suddenly I thought it all came back to me, and I remembered what it was. But it was daunting, but amazing, and almost, and I kept thinking of that little boy growing up on Tyneside, thinking, well, you did it. I mean,
I was just about to say, that's an amazing thing to think. You started the book as that little boy, and there you ended with the Queen.
Yeah.
How fantastic! What a journey that.
It's Billy Elliot, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
My granddad was a miner from the same area that Billy Elliot came from. Of course, a different generation. And when Billy Elliot wanted to achieve something that was unachievable and did it. And so I think very much about Billy Elliot. And yes, it's great. I mean, it doesn't mean anything. It actually doesn't mean. I'll tell you what was exciting about it. It was the fact, when you're young and you're politically set, if I get a knighthood or something, I'm never going to accept that. Of course, when I got the letter, I said, it took 2 seconds to say, yes, I'm going to accept this. But I partly accepted it for the industry, because when I first started recording audiobooks, or talking books, as they were called then, it was rather frowned upon by fellow actors. I mean, people would say rather disparagingly, oh, you record books for the blind, don't you? And I said, well, no, I record them for everybody. But the perception was that there's a little girl doing her knitting and she can't see very well. She's listening on a cassette player, because we recorded on tape then. And how the industry has changed. Yes. Now people always say to me, how'd you get into it? How can I get it? In the old days, actors would say, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. So, of course, the answer is that I got my foot in the door very early. And when people say to me, how do I get into it? I say, actually, I don't know. I'm already in it, and my foot's still in the door. But so
it was a bit like, when we all first started, how, you would never do a commercial. Yeah, because that was about the lowest form. Yeah,
can I do it?
And I remember when I left drama school, my agent said, look, to get an equity card, I've got you a commercial. He said, but you have to hide in this commercial so that nobody sees you doing it. Mm-hmm. And it was for a chocolate bar, to eat a chocolate bar, I think it was whatever it was. And he was there on the day we were filming, and he kept saying, get behind that person, get behind them. And I was terrified somebody would see me in this commercial and I'd never work again.
Yeah. Thank you so much, darling, for coming in and visiting us. It's been so lovely to hear your story.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, a joy. Thank you so much.
It's been fantastic.
Thank you, Bye.
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 What a lovely man. And he's done so many things. He's done so much. Goodness.
Now that's a career, isn't it?
That really is. Absolutely. That's a success.
And still ongoing as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. So fascinating. It was so interesting. He was so expressive with his hands, and I realized we don't do that sitting here. We just keep, I lift my coffee cup, but that's about it. Really. Or occasionally backwards and forwards. I stick the fingers up at you maybe, but other than that, I don't really use my hands really.
Yeah, I'm very jealous of that, because that's such a solid career.
It is. Absolutely.
And all of us are such tarts, and we're out there on the street begging for jobs.
No change there.
Yes,
but,
exactly.
Darling, talking of that, do you think we ought to send out some sort of search party for our colleague, Debbie?
You mean talking of tarts? Oh, sorry.
I don't say no, that's your version of it, darling, not mine. But do you think we ought to try and find out where she is?
Yes, I think the bad hair day has gone a bit sort of too far now.
No, let's leave her where she is.
Yeah.
For God's sake. Don't disturb a sleeping tiger, or whatever the expression is. It's asleep.
Fascinating, Liv, fascinating. Anyway, I'm sure she'll turn up at some point.
Yeah, she will.
Good explanation.
Who knows?
Yeah, eyes on you. Sherry.
Oh, yeah.
Something's going on there.
Anyway,
Oh, yes.
I must go. I've got things to do.
Oh, yes. Remember that dead agent last year? Yes. Okay. Bye.
Bye.